Scarcity, Choice, and Opportunity Cost for Cambridge CIE A-Level Economics. All right, picture this. You're standing right in the middle of a bustling street in central Bangkok. It's chaotic, it's vibrant, but you are actually looking at a very specific, very real economic problem. See, there is a strictly limited amount of physical space here. So, do we allocate that space to those amazing street food vendors to support local livelihoods and boost tourism? Or do we clear the whole pavement to allow for smoother, faster-moving traffic? We literally cannot flawlessly accommodate both. It's impossible. And this real-world trade-off, that is exactly what today's explainer is all about. We're going to build the absolute foundational concepts of economics by looking at exactly why we are forced to make these tough choices. Okay, let's just dive right into the core of it. Scarcity. This is the fundamental economic problem. It is the reality that our finite resources simply cannot satisfy infinite human wants. Honestly, it's the root cause of every single economic choice we make. Think about it. Our wants, whether we're talking about individuals, massive firms, or entire governments, are constantly expanding and changing. But the resources available to actually meet those wants, they're strictly limited. Because of scarcity, we just can't produce everything that everyone wants. Period. And therefore, choices absolutely have to be made about the most efficient use of what we do have. And that reality brilliantly illustrates our next critical concept, opportunity cost. Basically, this is the loss of the next best alternative when making a decision. You see, the true cost of any choice isn't just the financial price tag. It's what you literally have to give up to get it. Going back to our Bangkok street example, if the city chooses to give that pavement to the food vendors, the opportunity cost is losing the next best alternative, which is that smoother flow of traffic. Or say a government spends a huge chunk of its budget on free school meals. The opportunity cost there might be the closure of rural libraries that missed out on that exact funding. So what exactly is scarce? Well, that brings us to the factors of production. These are the scarce inputs we actually use to produce goods and services in any economy. They are categorized into 4 distinct groups: land, labor, capital, and enterprise. Every single economy on Earth, whether incredibly rich or developing, inherently has a limited supply of these 4 resources. And because these inputs are constrained, our total output is constrained too. Now, let's see how this builds into an actual economic mechanism. Scarcity naturally leads to choices, which causes every society to have to answer 3 fundamental allocation questions. And answering these questions results in their specific economic system. Step 1 is what to produce. Since we literally cannot produce everything, do we make consumer goods to raise our current living standards right now, or do we build capital and defense goods for the future? Well, deciding that leads directly to step 2, how to produce. Firms have to figure out how resources are combined. Do we use highly labor-intensive methods, or do we rely on capital-intensive machinery? Which causes us to finally ask step 3, for whom to produce. How is all this resulting output actually distributed? Does everybody get an equal share, or do we just step back and allow market forces to determine who gets what? Let's actually ground these abstract constraints with some local realities, looking at those 4 factors of production again. First up, land. Now, we aren't just talking about open fields here. We're talking about finite, usable space in a highly congested city like Bangkok, along with all the natural resources available. Second is labor. Think of the human workforce and how workers shift dynamically. You might see workers moving out of agriculture and into jobs at the local 7-Eleven or the wider service sector. Third, capital. This refers to man-made aids to production. A really prime example here is the heavy machinery and massive assembly plants required for Thailand's massive auto export industry. And finally, enterprise. These are the risk takers, the entrepreneurs organizing the other 3 factors, like the folks building and constantly innovating within Thailand's vital tourism sector. Now, exactly how these resources are allocated really depends on the economic system. We usually compare 2 main approaches: free market allocation versus government intervention. In a pure free market, resources are allocated entirely through the price mechanism. That means buyers and sellers interacting with 0 outside interference. The scarcer a resource, the higher its price. But, as we know, pure free markets can lead to some pretty severe inequalities. So we often see a mixed economy where the government steps in. A classic example of this is implementing a Thai-bought minimum wage. The government intervenes to override that free market price of labor, just to ensure workers can actually meet their basic needs. But here is the absolutely crucial point for your evaluative judgment. Does this intervention actually work? To get top marks in your thinking, you have to weigh both sides. Remember to say, however, this depends on the scale of the intervention. A small bump in the minimum wage, it might have totally negligible negative effects, but a massive, sudden increase could really shock the economy. Furthermore, you can point out that in the short run, government intervention successfully protects workers and raises their immediate living standards. But in the long run, it may actually cost jobs as firms look to replace that more expensive human labor with automated capital. And finally, the size of the effect depends heavily on market elasticity. If demand for labor is highly inelastic, the job losses will be minimal. So, your final judgment? A mixed economy is definitely necessary to correct market failures. But never forget, every single intervention carries its own opportunity cost. Let's wrap this explainer up with a quick exam alert to help you maximize your score. First, a really common mistake. Please do not confuse an economic want with an economic need. A need is strictly essential for survival, like basic food and shelter. A want is anything beyond that. And remember, human wants are infinite. Second, here is your top band move. To elevate your evaluation, apply that concept of opportunity cost directly to real-world government interventions. If a government rolls out a massive subsidy, like a rice pledging scheme, explicitly state that the opportunity cost is the other public services, like healthcare or infrastructure, that could have been funded with that exact same money. So consider this as you review your notes today. Every single decision you make has an opportunity cost. What is the next best alternative you are giving up right now to study this explainer? Keep that in the back of your mind, and you will absolutely master this topic.